the dress code of the people. So if you happen to see some of the, I remember my parents, my dad, my mom, when we were young, in the whole China, everybody wear the same style of clothing and same color. You can't imagine that actually if you haven't seen it in person. But then gradually, in towards the 80s, 90s, things just changed. So you are allowed to have more freedom, and the living standards are growing so much better. And then the variety comes in, the color comes in, and then you started to see the goods from the West, from Japan, from everywhere started pouring into the country. I still remember the first time I tasted the Coca-Cola in a glass bottle, and you have to go to a special shop to buy it. And there was it's quite an experience. I still remember the taste of that first bottle until today.
Welcome to the Immigrant Experience in America, an immigrant human library, where we amplify and humanize the experiences of immigrants in the United States and around the world. Listen in as we add another story to our immigrant human library. Today we have for you our second international guest of 2023. His name is Liu Liu, joining us from the United Kingdom. Welcome.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you very much for inviting me to this program, and welcome to the listeners.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to sharing your story with our listeners around the world. So, Liu, am I pronouncing your name correctly? It's Liu, correct?
That's right. Yes, it's Liu Liu. That's correct.
Very good. Can you tell us a bit about your heritage and where you're from and how you ended up in the UK?
Sure. I grew up in the southwest part of the country in China. So I don't know if any of you have ever looked at the map of China. It looks like a big chicken. So the most familiar places you hear a lot, like Hong Kong, Taiwan, it's on the south side. So Taiwan is like the chicken feet, and Hong Kong is around the tummy area. So I always say to people, I'm made in China, and also from the best part of the chicken is the chicken's bottom. It's a
Sorry.
Indeed, it's a province called the Yunnan province. The city is called Kunming. So the province itself borders with Myanmar or Burma and Vietnam. And the city I grew up, Kunming, has a long history tied in with America as well. During the Second World War, General Schneider set up the Flying Tiger to help the Chinese. The headquarters set up in Kunming, yeah, and also it's a starting place of Burma Road from Kunming to Myanmar during the Second World War. So it's got long history with American people. So it's a beautiful place. So in China, there are 56 minority groups, people groups. And then in Yunnan province alone has 28. So I belong to the majority group called Han people. So so that's where I come from. And how I end up in the UK, it's I was working in the university language center, Yunnan University, as the Foreign Affairs Secretary. And then I was on the management side. We are teaching international students Chinese. So students are coming from over 100 countries at a time. And then my wife, Alison, she happened to be one of the students, came from the UK to study and work there for 3 years. And then we met each other, and then we fell in love, and we got married in Thailand. That's another story for another day, and then we came over to the UK. So ever since, so I've been here for nearly 22 years now.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. How was it during the transition?
The transition is quite an interesting journey, I have to say. Um, there are few things really struck me during the transition is when I was working in the university, so I ended up with a good job at a young age in my 20s. It's a respectful job. And then, yeah, I really enjoyed that as well. It's quite a nice international community. And then when I moved to Thailand, then it was a challenging time. The story goes when we got engaged in 1998, actually, or 1998, that's right. So, and then we just came back. I came to the UK, visited her family, and then we went back to China. And then there's a terrible incident happened. It's a NATO, during the NATO campaign to Kosovo, they happened to have bombed the Chinese embassy. So the whole relationship gone really soured with the West. And then there was a worry that the country will close up, and then they might ask all the foreigners to leave. So we will end up being apart for no matter nobody knows how long. So it was a panic. And then we dashed for Thailand because Allison's work has a team in Thailand as well, and I happen to know through my work in the university the Thai consulate based in Kunming. So he gave me a visa, and then we rushed to Thailand, and then we lived there and worked there for nearly a year. But unfortunately, the visa he gave me um, is a quite a weird visa. It's like a some kind of a special visa. But then when I landed in Thailand, I'm out of his favor because he's out of his reach, out of his favor. Nobody understands how to work that visa out. So I end up living in that country with have to go to the immigration office every 15 days or every 30 days to extend my visa in order to be legally stay. So it's a hugely stressful time. So when we come to the UK, Alison have to leave Thailand 3 months in advance to come to the UK to find a job, to secure a accommodation in order for me to apply for a visa to come to the UK. So the whole process was quite stressful. So we were apart for 3 months. On the first year, we got married. So we thought we were going to come to the UK to have another wedding ceremony because none of her family could attend our wedding in China and Thailand. And then by the time we got to the UK, I got to UK, we were just exhausted by all the visa processes. So, but yeah, I was there, and then I started to work straight away. I was really fortunate. I got a job in a hotel. In England, it's called the pub, but in the US, it's called the bar. So every hotel has a bar. So I got a job in a hotel bar. Within a week, I landed in the UK. So I was fortunate, but it was a huge challenge to my identity. So I was wondering how on earth I worked in university and then ended up working in a bar. And then I worked there for 3 months. And then by chance, I got a job in the organization I'm working in now. But again, it's a low-end job. So I applied for a clerk level job, but then they don't think I was good enough at the time. And then I ended up uh, in a job working in the post room or mail room for 3 years. So then from there, I just made my way step by step. to where I am now. So as a senior manager leading an international team and working on the one of the organization's key areas of work. So yeah, it's quite a journey. It's quite a journey.
Wow, 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 wow. And 22 years later, here we are.
Indeed, here we are. So I'm now leading a team of international staff and also developing my private practice as a in cross-cultural intelligence coach. So and meeting all those people, including yourself, around the world. It is amazing journey. It really is amazing journey.
Wow,
And yeah,
awesome. Happy to, I'm glad you shared the bit of a historical background there about the part of the China that you're from, and also the backstory of what really happens when people find international love and then they transition from to another country, how difficult the immigration process and stressful at times it can be.
definitely, definitely. So I think it's every immigrant, or if you call that particularly the first generation immigrant like myself, it's always quite difficult. And everyone has their own story to tell. I'm really sure about that.
Yes, yes, yes. I wonder, is there any additional information about what life was like in your formative years in China, growing up, and what was China like during that season? Because most of us haven't, I've never been to China. All we know is the little snippets we get from the media. So it's often quite revealing to get it from people who have lived and experienced it. So I wonder what you have to share with us.
Sure. So I grew up in the 70s, and the 70s is the time China actually started to make some transition or to make some turning. 70s to 80s, very important decades, if you like. So in the late 70s, one of the major things happened in China is actually China normalized the relationship with the USA. So that really opened the door to the West. And then I think that at the time, the leader called Deng Xiaoping, you might have heard about him from different places, really pushed for this open door policy. So I was growing up in a time that you see the change start to happen in the country. So, and then by the 80s, 90s, it's like, yeah, the whole country just started to grow into this huge experimental ground on a new economic policy, and things are booming everywhere. Even you can tell from the dress code of the people. So if you happen to see some of the, I remember my parents, my dad, my mom, when we were young, in the whole China, everybody wear the same style of clothing and same color. You can't imagine that actually if you haven't seen it in person. But then gradually, in towards the 80s, 90s, things just changed. So you are allowed to have more freedom, and the living standards are growing so much better. And then the variety comes in, the color comes in, and then you started to see the goods from the West, from Japan, from everywhere started pouring into the country. I still remember the first time I tasted the Coca-Cola in a glass bottle, and you have to go to a special shop to buy it. And there was it's quite an experience. I still remember the taste of that first bottle until today. So, yeah, so I really lived through a period China moved from a totally closed country to a open country. Hence, all the international students were pouring in to China to study the Chinese language, to learn about the culture, and then some of them end up working there. So yeah, it's quite an era of change
Hmm.
I lived through.
Wow, wow. You mentioned not being able to imagine all the children wearing the same colors or the same style. I mean, am I hearing you correctly that your neighbors, everybody in the community wore the very exact replica?
Absolutely, not just children, adults as well. I will find a couple of photos, send it to you afterwards. It's all the same style, blue, because that's what you're. It's what you're supposed to wear and what you're allowed to wear at the time, coming out from 60s and 50s China, very restrictive policy. Yeah,
Wow, you're right. I can't imagine it, but I'm trying to create the sense of what that might be like. I guess I wore uniform going to school all my life except for college, so I can imagine all the girls in the same style and the same colors and everything, just very uniform. All the males wearing the same khaki uniforms as well. So I have that
that's right. That's right.
exposure. Yes. How did you get into the international studies program, and that's where you met your wife? So the opening started, international students started pouring in, and how did that start your career?
Um, so in China, I think after the high school, I didn't go to the college or university straight away. I went to a translator school and studied English for 2 years. Then at the end of the school, one of my teachers, he is one of the university professor, so he recommended me to this place to work. So that's how I started my career. So again, I started working at the reception of that place because it is like quite a like a institute. So, but it has its own accommodation and the dining area and the teaching quarter, everything. And towards the end of 90s, still foreigners come to China are only allowed to live in officially designated area. So university accommodation is more or less the only place they can live. So that's where I worked. I started as a receptionist, and then within a year or so, I just moved up, become the foreign affairs secretary for that center. Yeah, that's where I met my wife, and I got into this working with international students. I just loved culture. I love diversity, and I really loved meeting different people from different countries. Yeah, that really opened my eye and really stirred my curiosity. I remember people used to ask me, have you been to this country? Have you been to that country? My answer was always very optimistic. I said, not yet. I said, not yet. So going abroad towards the 90s is still it's quite difficult for most of the people. So, but I was fortunate. I managed to come to the UK to meet my wife's family. Uh, Again, a big deal. So it really was a big deal. I have to fly to the capital, Beijing, to apply for the visa, which is China is a big country like the States. It's like 3 hours by flight. You fly there, you queue for hours, and then you get the visa and you fly back. And then, yeah, you go to the UK. So, yeah, that's how I got into the working with the international community, international people. And then when I came over to England, I also started, although starting from the post room, but the organization I'm working in is also an international organization. So it's an international relief and development organization or charity, if you like. Sometimes people call that. We work in 50 countries again. So I had the opportunity to work with people around the world again.
Yes, amazing, amazing. That's awesome. Your journey of life path continued.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So tell us a bit about, what you do today and I guess, some of the work that you're doing with your coaching practice.
Yes. So what I'm doing now is, apart from being a manager in this organization, I'm also running this private coaching practice. So my niche or focus, if you like, is called cross-cultural intelligence, uh, broadly aimed at managers in organizations and companies. So just to clarify one thing, when I'm telling people cross-cultural intelligence, people can think, oh, this cross-cultural communication. That is not entirely the picture. So in cross-cultural communication is part of cross-cultural intelligence, or sometimes called intercultural intelligence. So the core of this concept is that how people like you and me, first is how we understand our own culture, our own behavior, and why we behave the way we do because of our own culture. And the second level is about how we see or understand or want to understand other culture, and then understand the reason behind other people's behavior. So there's this two aspects to it. Yes, so about understanding our own and also understanding the others people's behavior. And all those cultural issues are in all aspects of life, if you like. But my focus is around helping managers to how they can manage a project from beginning to end, working with people from either from different background, but living in the same country, or from different countries across the globe. So how they can work effectively to understand each other, to build trust and build coordination, and to bridge the gaps of understanding, and then they can work effectively together to achieve whatever goals of the project they set out to do. So that's really my focus and really my passion, because of my experience working with international colleagues managing projects and of millions of pounds. So I know what works and what doesn't. So I'm really passionate about helping people, if you like, to take the shortcut. So give what I have learned to those who are just at the beginning of their journey, so they don't have to try trial by error and to try it out. Sometimes with with consequences, if you like. So I can really help people, and I'm really passionate about helping people to go through their journey.
Yes, yes. And that is such a needed skill because our world has become so connected, interconnected. Travel has increased, the internet and technology has brought the entire globe together, and so many of us are working with colleagues around the world, and now with people going virtual, it appears that it even might become more so in the near future.
Absolutely, definitely. That is also it's a huge advantage, but it also gives a false impression that we all work on the, if you like, speak the same language, English as a business language, and that therefore we understand each other. But that's not the case. So even the way we write email, if you like. So I remember that I started communicating with you. We just started to exchange messages quite quite to the point, short and concise. But then, if I think actually, this is the way how U.S., Europe largely communicate now. But when I'm writing emails with my colleagues in some Asian countries, some African countries, I still have to be really formal, quite respectful in that way. So you start with a proper greeting and then ask them how they are doing, greetings, and yeah, it's quite a there's quite a formula there you have to follow. Otherwise, they would just still see you as disrespectful. And in fact, actually, I had people complain to me saying that English people, I don't know this person. Why she or he writes such short message to me? I don't know what's happening. So people get offended. So these are just, it's quite, yeah. Then all of a sudden you think, oh, actually, we still have our differences. Yeah.
Well, and as I think about myself, I am now the hybrid of what I call a high context culture and now living in a low context culture for 20 plus years. And I go back and forth between both, where I sometimes don't expect that formality, but sometimes I feel like I still want it because sometimes I will have, if somebody new reaches out to me and they, for example, just go right into asking me for something, I would think to myself, boy, this person didn't even ask how I'm doing, and they're immediately just going in for the ask.
Yeah.
And so it all depends. I'm still trying to unravel this new person that I've become because I'm realizing more and more that I'm very American in my communication and the way I see things. And when I'm communicating with folks who have been in longer in a high context culture, that their expectations can be different, and the way I view them is quite different now that I've been living here for 20 plus years.
Yeah, yeah, definitely agree. I think for our listeners' benefits, the so-called high context culture and low context culture means in the high context culture, normally it means culture has very long heritage and long history. So you have a lot of the shared experience, shared memory, and people, when people communicate, they refer a lot back to the history and yeah, and to the ancient literature, um, idioms, so that everybody with very little words, everybody understand what it means because you all grew up through that kind of cultural background and history. While in the low context culture, that's not the case. Is that you have to really be very factual, very detailed to the facts and in relates with regard to information because people from different background if you assume they should understand and then you end up people will end up not understanding. I think that's a difference. Yeah, it is difficult to I am struggling like you when I'm communicating with my family and friends back in China and sometimes they can be so high context and for an outside a person it's just totally it's like a code. So one day within the kind of on the social media, one of my friends he posted a photo of him because he calls himself Mr. Ma, means is a horse. He posted a photo of a horse with a little bird sitting on the back of the horse. So I took a look at the photo. I said to Alison, my wife, I said, "Oh, it's a shame. He broke up with his girlfriend. Now he's on his own with a daughter again." And Alison took a look at the photo. Said, "How on earth did you get that?" Yeah, so that is a typical example of high context. So you really have to yeah be in that culture to know what code they are talking about.
Right. And it can be exhausting, I think, for me, When I was younger and I was immersed in the high context, more communal culture, I could pick up on the codes and how people communicate without really saying what they want. And and today I find myself trying to figure out, like, what are they actually saying? Because we're dancing around the issue, but nobody's really getting to the point. And I find it kind of frustrating for me today as I've gotten older and, all my work life has been in a low context culture, to the point. You say what you mean, but it can be frustrating at times when you realize that people they're saying what they want to say, but not really saying what they want to say. So it can be so confusing. Join us again next time for part 2 of this episode. We thank our listeners around the world, and we appreciate your continued support as we build our human library. Please remember to give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and share with your friends, family, and circle of influence.